One of the things that just comes into my head when we talk about like secret military trainings in towns is that some person is going to get their rifle and get their gun out of their closet and start shooting at people. It just like there's so many. I mean, I want to get into other aspects of how this is really dangerous too. But just the idea of having this type of thing, the soldiers' lives are at stake. I mean, by some bumpkin, but like, see, if you saw people storming your backyard, you'd probably freak out too. So I'm not even saying someone wouldn't be needlessly scared of seeing armed troops storming, your backyard, but putting the soldiers' lives in risk, putting the citizens' lives in risk. It's really, to me, it seems unbelievably irresponsible.
Well, that's a really important point, and one of the sources that I interviewed in the story spoke to that. Well, actually, several did, but excuse me. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that this is an exercise that could not end well in many different ways. And one of them that you just mentioned, where let's say there's someone living in a rural part of town, their house is kind of out by themselves. They're armed. There's someone, let's say they are a libertarian, or they're one of these people that even has more of a mindset along of some of these militias of like what we're seeing in Oregon right now, and they've been having some drinks, and it's late at night, it's midnight, it's 1 a.m., and then this armed team of guys goes walking down right nearby their house, or is coming up into their backyard, which would very much be possible in these exercises, the way the Navy articulates exactly what they are and what their aims are. And then this person looks out their window. I mean, the potential of an accident, of them opening fire, of them calling the police, of them doing numerous other things, even, getting in a belligerent shouting match with them. And what happens if one of the SEALs, it's a bad night for him and he doesn't react well? I mean, there's a million ways that this thing could not end well, thereby immediately jeopardizing the safety, obviously not just of the SEALs, but of a civilian who, prior to this engagement, was, out there on his own, minding his own business.
Supposedly within the documents, there's supposed to be I'm putting air quotes, safety barrier with these type of trainings. Just get into how this is, with where this is. That's completely ridiculous, and there's actually no real way, if they're going through city streets, of actually having some type of safety barrier, correct?
Right, that's exactly right. The documents claim there would be a so-called safety barrier from between 500 to 1,000 meters that would be maintained by Navy support team in boats, vehicles, or on foot, which theoretically would prevent bystanders from entering the areas. Yet, in classic military fashion, their exercises and the documents about them clearly detail that they would be going through residential neighborhoods. So if you have a Navy SEAL team walking through a residential neighborhood, how do you maintain a safety barrier with a house? You're going to move that person's house 1,000. It's impossible to maintain a safety barrier. If they're swimming up into a harbor where there's people living on their boats, what are you going to do? Make people, pull up anchor and move their ships right away? I mean, it's literally an absurd proposition, and it's impossible for them to enforce. Not even to talk about that what's that going to do to the public. So let's say it's this coming summer and someone's out on the beach in Fort Worden State Park, nearby where I live, for example, where when it's a sunny summer day, that's a very, very popular thing. You see people out there all the time going for walks, playing Frisbee, even going swimming. And all of a sudden, this big contingent of Navy boats shows up and SEALs start swimming on the shore. And what are they going to herd all these people off and then keep them out of the way? I mean, they're going to completely disrupt the park. And then another aspect of the story, using the same state park as example, is there's a peace park up in the woods in Fort Worden State Park. And it's clearly detailed in the document. You can go into these documents and pull up the slide for Fort Worden State Park, and it shows here's the proposed landing area. This is where we'd be carrying out our war games, et cetera, et cetera. And they literally have plans to carry out war games within a peace park. Needless to say, once I published these documents, it's a lot of people around this area have become very, very upset. And that's just one example. People can pull up maps of wherever their area is in the state, if they live on a coastline, and see exactly what the Navy has plans. And that's exactly what's been happening. And so people, tribes up in this area, the governor's office, people are very, very upset because they look at the discrepancies and they see, look, this is completely absurd, it's disrespectful, and it's even unlawful because they're not following the NEPA, and people are not having any part of it.